Hello and welcome to the Backfield, the running back analysis podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. Talking about some of your favorite plays for running backs for Week 14. Starting off at the top with LeSean McCoy, facing off against his old team, so you get your little narrative street there as well. He's been great and finally big time involvement in the offense. Finally, after the beginning of the season, we see pretty much everyone but him getting goal line carries. But as you mentioned here, at least 19 carries in 4 straight games. So this is an Eagles defense that it looks like they played a great game last week, and they played a good all-around game. But no part of the team was great, even in that win over the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, they're allowing tons of fantasy points, even though they look like a decent defense. So I'm not really scared. I mean, you look at the Bills, they got a 24 team total, favored in this one. And we do love the narrative game. I think with McCoy facing off against the 20th ranked rush defense, I mean, he should be in for a full workload and should just have that little extra boost going for him this week. So, I mean, regardless of the narrative, he still is one of the top plays at running back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, his price really hasn't caught up to his recent, I guess new role or increased production, I guess. Next up, Doug Martin, a guy who's had a couple of huge rushing games. Early in the season, he had a couple big touchdown games as well. So this is a guy that is playing on a team, like you mentioned, with the highest team total on the slate, facing off against a team that struggles against the run. And, I mean, as far as safe bets, guys that you know are going to get a lot of touches, Doug Martin's up there with pretty much anyone as far as involvement in the offense.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's had the third most rushing attempts in the red zone among running backs and QBs. So, even though he hasn't had a ton of touchdowns this season, he's still getting a lot of looks there. So, I mean, anyone against New Orleans is in a great spot, so we do like that. And looking at the spread there, nothing out yet, but you got to assume that Tampa's going to be favored there, so Martin should see another 20-plus carry game. And I just don't like any of the other options up there, like Freeman or Forte, Gurley, just not on my radar. So I think playing it down a little bit with guys like McCoy and Martin is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Get yourself some stability without breaking your salary bank there. Next up, a value play, a guy that a couple weeks ago you felt awful about putting into your lineups, and now just kind of has that specific role in the 49ers offense as the guy that catches the short passes so that Blaine Gabbert doesn't get murdered in the backfield. And Sean Drone over here, 22 receptions in the last 4 weeks. As you mentioned here, though, not a guy who's a great between the tackles runner, not a great runner in general, but just the nice floor that he gives you, especially on a full PPR site like DraftKings, that he's going to get targeted, 5, 6, maybe even up to 8 times, depending on the game flow. And you mentioned about 15 touches, so that's really all you need at his price tag here, and you just hope that he can turn one of those things into a score and get himself a little bit upside as well.
Yeah, I mean, for FanDuel purpose, you're really hoping for that score. I think on DK, where he's still super cheap, and with the full point PPR, you like him a little bit more there. Just a 3.3 yards per carry this season, but I mean, really, you got to figure he's played Seattle, Atlanta, decent run defense in Atlanta, and also Arizona, so some pretty tough teams. Now he gets Cleveland, not a great rush defense, allowing 4.6 yards per carry, so I think, he's going to see 15 touches, could see up towards 20 if he rushes, if he's really being successful, but still going to be a target in the passing game, which you got to like.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next guy who's been stepping in for Marshawn Lynch and is playing better than Lynch did at all this season. And you saw even Russell Wilson was interviewed yesterday. I think it was on NFL Network. I was watching that and getting a lot of high praise from Wilson, who, I mean, kind of praises everyone, to be honest. I've never heard him say anything negative about anyone. But either way, Thomas Rawls has been great. I mean, in the passing game, the running game, he's looked good. I mean, undrafted rookie over here that is just tearing it up for Seattle. And all of a sudden, this team went from big-time disappointment, starting with the last play of the Super Bowl, carrying over into this season, and then now all of a sudden they look like a force to be reckoned with. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have that consistent running game with Thomas Rawls right now.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to like him. I mean, either site has not caught up with the price yet. More so on FanDuel, he's a little more expensive, but DraftKings, he's still a great value play, and he's going to get that full workload. Baltimore, not a great defense. You got to imagine Seattle being heavily favored, and then him easily just seeing another 20-touch game, and he's been very consistent and getting that rushing for 5.6 yards per carry on the season. So, he's in the value section here, but you could definitely toss him in the elite area.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next up, this is kind of a contingent play, like you said, on the status of C.J. Anderson, who looks like he's going to miss practice for at least much of this week and may not be able to go. But Ronnie Hillman, guy who last week, neither guy was great and it was a fine matchup. But Hillman has shown upside also. He's cheap, and especially if CJ Anderson's out of there, you don't have to worry about which guy's going to get more touches, where it's been kind of similar to how running back situations were in New England the past couple of years, where you don't know who's getting the touches from game to game. But if Anderson sits out, though, Ronnie Hillman's going to be the back, and you know he can catch passes. He would be the volume runner as well. So this is definitely a good spot for him, especially if CJ Anderson sits.
Yeah, and if you look at the way Denver has played the last few weeks since Osweiler stepped under center, outside of that New England game where he actually had to throw the ball, they've just been running the ball and playing defense, and you got to expect that's what they're going to do against Oakland here. I know Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, those guys are a good passing team, but this defense is just easily top 3 in the league and shutting teams down. So you got to expect a full workload for Hillman. And with Denver 7.5-point favorites, it really just easily sets up a nice game flow situation for him as long as that stays put.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense there. And then last up, Lamar Miller. I mean, he is like the definition. If you look up GPP running back in the dictionary or whatever, I guess the modern day dictionary is Google, you're going to see Lamar Miller because we've seen big time downside and huge upside as well. And the touches have been really inconsistent as well. Even when he was producing at a really, really high level in the passing game and the running game, it's just this Miami team is just such a mess from week to week that you don't really know where the production is going to come or if any production is going to come from anyone. But Lamar Miller still certainly has big upside. And like you mentioned, 20 carries last week. Maybe he gets that. Maybe he doesn't.
Maybe.
But if he does, though, he's going to have big time upside. He's the type of guy that you like to take that risk on in GPPs.
Yeah, I mean, definitely he's a home run threat in the screen game as well. So if they can get him involved, which they really haven't much in the passing game lately, but their passing game hasn't been great altogether, over the last few games anyway. But, if the Giants get out to an early lead, you could see Miller feature in the passing game. But either way, I think, he should get his touches. I mean, easily he's the second best playmaker on the team, maybe behind Jarvis Landry. I just think his price is too low for the upside. Definitely one of the better tournament plays with his ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board with that one. And with that, that'll wrap things up here for us for the running back analysis. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We've got lots of other NFL and NBA, other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.